back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, we are back. It is another edition of the unofficial 40 podcast, brought to you by Soonerscoop.com and DeadSoxy.com. So we are here. It is the first podcast after the national championship, so college football, unfortunately, is over. We didn't even get that good of a game out of it. Basically, I saw the replay of that game, guys. Like, that was a good game until like 6 minutes left in the second quarter, and then it just went to shit.
Yeah, there was a point like the second quarter that I thought, my God, this is going to be a really good football game. 14-14 midway through the second quarter, and then all of a sudden you look up and the game was over. Devonta Smith had caught like 27 balls in the first half.
You kept feeling like Alabama was waiting for Ohio State to correct their error. Like Alabama's like, okay, we're going to give you a little time here to figure out that you're putting a linebacker on Devonta Smith. And then they were like, no, we're good with it. We're going to keep rolling with that. And Alabama was like, fine, it. Let's just be done with this.
Look, I think that Devonta Smith is a great football player, but you have to admit that defensive game plan or just preparation was shit.
Awful.
Let's ask Austin Kendall. I'm sure he'd have a few words about
basic
the
defenses.
game plan.
That was a very basic defense, yeah. Unfortunately, Austin Kendall was never good enough to make a defense look like that.
Well, what's so funny is, you know, even coaches that are like defenders of coaches on Twitter were like, yeah, this is bad. Like, I mean, they couldn't even come up with a way to defend what Kerry Coombs was doing. And Kerry Coombs is a guy fresh back from the NFL. This isn't a guy that is some yokel that doesn't know his stuff. I mean, he is a very respected coach. And for some reason, that's just all he could come up with.
I almost feel like I have to take back my shitty snark about Texas fans becoming Texas A&M fans, because Steve Sarkisian looks like he's basically bringing the entire Alabama program with him, at least the coaching staff.
Guys, I mean, are you surprised? Like, we all know Saban every year loses guys. He always does. But I am surprised he's getting some of the pieces he's getting. Like, Flood is very good. Banks is very good as a recruiter. I mean, there are. I mean, Banks had a role in Jace McClellan and Kamar Wheaton this year. So that's not small.
Anything with Wheaton?
You wouldn't think so. I mean, because, I mean, I don't think any of us should pretend to ourselves that Kamar Wheaton is so bonded to anybody on either coaching staff or literally maybe anyone that would affect his decision. But, I mean, it's not impossible, but it seems unlikely.
Josh, don't you just want to never shut up about any opinion on Wheaton or what he'll do at this point?
Because I'm gonna be wrong. Like, I don't have any ego about myself. Like, he is gonna make me wrong just because whatever I swear to God, he listens to people and he's like, all right, well, it's like not like a opposite of that. Yeah, it's not like a people to kill list. It's like a people to shame list or something. Like, who can I make wrong today?
Well, and I mean, the one thing about, you know, Sarkisian is he going to teach the donors how to cheat too while he's here?
Well, I mean, there was the whole Bo Davis rumor there for a while, and you're like, I mean, Texas is going to just surrender all the high ground that they've argued against Oklahoma fans for years in one hire, and Bo Davis Bo Davis had a show cause until like 2 years ago. That's not the guy that Mac Brown would have hired. I guess we could put it that way.
Well, I mean, I think that we're pretty much through any off-season transitions as far as Oklahoma goes. So whatever's happening at Texas is going to happen. Oklahoma seems to be pretty set. They do lose Ronnie Perkins. They lose Rhamondre Stevenson. We did do everything we could to prep you. So if you were upset or mad about it, I mean, you shouldn't have been, because we laid the breadcrumbs out there for a while. Like, we think this is going to happen. And so it does, and you move on, and now it is still Oklahoma. Rivals puts them number one. A lot of people have them number two. And guys, I said this during the game as I'm watching it, like I'm watching all these quarterbacks. I'm watching, every team that's been in here and their quarterback, like they're not coming back next year for the playoff team. So having Spencer Rattler is the biggest feather in anybody's cap. I mean, I know DJ Uiagalelei or whatever his name is. He's a really good quarterback, but I still think he's going to go through a little bit of a freshman roller coaster as a first-year starter, or a sophomore roller coaster would be. Well, he didn't. I don't know if he played 4 games. Did he? Will he keep his freshman designation? Well, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
But at the same time, he's still essentially a freshman.
Yeah.
So, and I just think Clemson, from what I saw defensively, they've really fallen off from where they were 2 years ago.
Well, it's a lot like what OU would have had to learn if they'd have lost Isaiah Thomas and Perrion Winfrey and that sort of thing. Your defense doesn't look nearly as good when you don't have 4 NFL guys up front. Like, I mean, they had
first-round NFL guys.
Yeah, I mean, they had, one of the best starting defensive lines in the last 20 years of college football. I mean, it was just amazing what they could run out there.
And Mike Mayock would take them all.
Yes. Give me all the Clemson.
So, I mean, now you're sitting here with Oklahoma. I guess maybe you could see something with Buki. I mean, that would be the only thing that I would put on my list to watch out for.
Yeah, just look at his Twitter. There's no mention of OU.
He's been putting a lot of stuff on Instagram. I would be shocked if he goes anywhere.
He got a couple more days.
But I mean,
it'd be weird for somebody to declare for the Canadian football draft too.
I'd be kind of
smaller
cool.
person, bigger field. I kind of like the way that all that comes out.
Yeah,
it's a great
somebody tell him he has to cover more ground. That probably wouldn't be a good thing.
Oh no.
So I mean, now you move on forward. You pretty much have this team. We don't know what's going to happen with the hire. Yeah, I mean, the hire is really the biggest thing that is out there. And, Lincoln's been down golfing with down in Cabo or whatever. Or I think that's where people said they took a picture with him on the board.
Yes.
Cabo San Lucas. Yeah. So he's been getting some time where I think most of the coaches have. You really haven't seen, I mean, I guess we should talk about the transfer portal because, I mean, once again, it's kind of one of those things that it seems like it's just been full of disappointments, but I don't know that there really should be anything to be disappointed about at this point. I think the offensive lineman from Tennessee becomes the first real big, we have to get this guy of the transfer portal season, doesn't he?
For sure. I mean, you look at all the other ones that have come and gone in the last week and a half, and that would have been nice, but it wasn't necessity. Wanye Morris is a necessity based on you losing Ely, you don't get Tristan Lee. This is exactly the type of guy, when you hit in the portal, that's how there's no drop-off. You just keep going exactly the way you planned on going into the 2021 season.
Now, I know, just from talking to Josh, OU definitely wants this guy. And Bob, I know you said something the other day about you've noticed his activity, especially Twitter followings, that it seems like he's blowing up really fast too, nationally.
Yeah, the Buckeyes seem to, just based on social media, the Buckeyes look like the biggest threat. But I mean, from everything we've heard, from the moment this kind of popped through like last Thursday, OU's look like the team to beat. And so now it's just about doing what they couldn't do for the 2021 class, closing the actual deal.
Yeah, that's absolutely how I see it. I mean, like everybody I've talked to, there was this belief kind of, around the board, around certain, sources that I talked to. It was like, well, he's going to Oklahoma. Like, I mean, and I mean that more from like an SEC side of things.
Right.
When I would talk to sources that I deal with daily, it was like, I mean, like there's reason to think we got a chance here. But I mean, it was very much a coming from the other side of the fence kind of thing. So Oklahoma, in their opinion, still had work to do here. This wasn't just a, like some of these we see where as soon as the guy left, you kind of knew what was going to happen. Chandler Morris, I guess, would be a pretty good example. But at the same time, we'll have to see what happens. But I mean, there's a reason that confidence is out there. I mean, there's clearly some groundswell that Oklahoma is what he would like to do. But like Bob said, they've got to go close the deal. And, they're working on several other guys. We talked guys yesterday, and I don't think we really got to put it on the board much because it kind of happened so fast. The Strachan kid from Georgia State, I know that's a guy Oklahoma had interest in. Yeah. Oklahoma had interest in him, and basically from the minute he left Georgia State, it sounded like he was destined to go with Shane Beamer to South Carolina. Now, I don't know what the connection was there. I'm sure there's some, and I just didn't dig into it far enough to find it. But Oklahoma had interest there. So, people that are kind of thinking, OU's not doing anything. That's not what's going on at all. There's only 3 or 4 guys maybe at a time that they're like, yeah, we really want to go after him. Strachan is a guy I think they would have absolutely taken.
And guys, I think there's a little bit of I'm kind of starting to hear some noise, like it might be coming down from administrators, decision makers across college football that are trying to kind of put the brakes on all of this. Not so much the movement, but people just stockpiling players right now, like. Hey guys, this is not, you're not going to have 105 scholarship players forever here. You're going to basically, the kind of feel that I'm getting is the message is getting out there like you're going to be forced to dump a bunch of numbers if you build it up too much. And I think that's what Lincoln's been worried about this entire time.
Yeah,
devil's advocate.
Go ahead, Eddie. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, just play devil's advocate. I think there's a lot of people out there that would say that's the way that you should go about it. Like, if you have to cut a bunch of kids, so be it. You're trying to win championships, not trying to make friends with some of these high school kids.
Yeah, but you also don't want to piss off a bunch of high school coaches in the process.
Yeah, I get it. It almost feels like, though, the people that are doing that are like the goody two-shoe kid at a high school party saying that everybody's going to get in trouble when everybody looks at that guy and is like, kind of rolls their eyes and just goes about their business. You see what I'm just trying to play devil's advocate on that because I know that there's going to be a lot of fans that hear that and think that OU's not trying to do the most that they possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, I can just tell you, I had a conversation with someone that's been a head coach, in Division I, and that was something that he said, is a real concern right now that he sees in terms of, his job or other head coaches' jobs, stuff that they're talking about. That's going to become something that once the vaccine starts getting out there, once people start getting back to spring football practice, once people see these bloated rosters that are all over the place. It's going to become one of the main focuses of the NCAA is trimming these numbers down.
Well, that's good to see. The NCAA has got a clear focus on something that it needs to be addressed. I mean, that needs to be their purview.
Well, they're not. They just gave up on NLI for now, which is interesting. After that's all we've heard about for the last, even before COVID started.
Yep, that's if you've got a publicity group, they're going to be pissed off about that. So, affirm.
Wasn't the free transfer in that as well? Not only the name, image, likeness, but the free transfer thing. But there's nothing you can do about that. All these kids are transferring in the last month with the firm belief that they can just go wherever they want and play in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's going to change. I think they're stuck with that. I mean, they're not going to have to – there's so much movement. They're not going to be able to go through and do it waiver by kid. I mean, we saw how that worked out with Chris Murray this year. There's just too many of those to have to deal with. So it's just it has to be – for 2021, it has to be free reign. Just do whatever you want to do.
Yep.
So, I mean, that will continue to play out. Like Josh said, I think that the main thing is don't panic because OU hasn't gotten 10 kids out of the portal so far. They're definitely being selective, but these guys that, like you mentioned, the guy from was it Georgia State, Georgia Southern? I can't.
Georgia State. Yeah.
I mean, that kid, and then the offensive lineman out of Tennessee. I mean, those are two clearly guys that
Josh,
OU's identified.
I want to ask about Big Cat Bryant, since that was another name. As soon as it hit, it sounded like OU coaches kind of jumped in.
My impression on him is that it's really going to matter what Rodney Garner does, the former Auburn defensive line coach. There's a lot of connection there. If he was to land back in the SEC, I would be willing to bet that's what Bryant's going to do. But if he does not, I think Oklahoma could have a chance and would have an open door to him. So it's kind of OU fans should be rooting for him to get a job at like Oregon or something, like just somewhere way out there. And then I think Oklahoma could have a chance because they've been engaged there. They are trying. I know Viney follows him, Kane follows him, Thibodeau follows him. They're all actively involved there. But if Garner ends up back in the SEC, it's probably kind of makes it, it's moot.
Outside of that, anybody that that you think is worth keeping an eye on that's in the portal or could be in the portal?
I'm still with Eddie. Buffalo running back Kevin Marks is still one that I'm searching nearly, once a day just to see what's new with him, with his followers, and who is following him. I just think they need a running back. They need some sort of running back. And in my opinion, now that some of these other guys have made their choices, including TJ Pledger going Utah, Kevin Marks is the best running back in the portal at this moment. Will that change? I don't know, but he's the best.
Yeah, and I would also say, it doesn't make a lot of sense for Kevin Marks, but if he wanted to go to a bigger school and, the I guess, cliche line of betting on himself, I don't know a school that could offer him a better opportunity as far as getting some carries, maybe get in a rotation. I don't think it'd be crazy to say that him and Kennedy Brooks could, I don't know about split carries, but I think that he could definitely take some carries away from somebody like a Marcus Major.
That's one of those things, though, that we see it. We see that it makes sense. I almost think it's hard for a kid coming from the outside to, believe that OU has a massive need at the running back position. I would imagine he's going to be like, really? Yeah, everybody tells me that, but you guys have this guy and this guy and this guy. And he was a 4-star and a 4-star and a 4-star.
Yeah, you've got two freshmen returning that could be freshmen again next year that combined for about 300 yards of offense in the Cotton Bowl. That's it's not an easy sell to somebody that's not,
coming
if he wants
Buffalo,
to really look. Yeah, exactly. Where he, and he knows this is his chance. To get it right and go to a place where he's really going to have an opportunity. At the same time, you wonder how many kids can process the information. The NFL wants you with as little wear and tear as humanly possible on you. And if you go to a place where you're getting 10, 12, 15 carries instead of 30, you're more likely to be a long-term option for the NFL.
By the way,
the only reason I bring him up is because he followed DeMarco Murray. In terms of betting on yourself, he made that first step. OU hasn't done anything yet, at least as of this morning. So for him to follow Murray told me he's willing to go to as big a school as possible just to try to get profile out there.
And I think that's something, noteworthy too, is I know with OU, they're very diligent about, and I know this goes back to compliance, which people hate, but they're very diligent about not contacting people until they are officially in the portal. So, I know that, the what's his first name again? The Tennessee guy, I always screw it up. Wanye.
Doesn't love Boys to Men. It's Wanye Morris. It's the exact same name.
Really? I never realized there was a Wanye in Boys to Men.
That's criminal.
I got Boys to Men 2 on vinyl, okay? That makes up for it.
Oh, God, do you really?
I really do. I really do.
I've got all their albums. I don't have anything on vinyl, though.
Do you have a record player, Bob?
No, I've got all their CDs.
Oh, okay.
I got all their CDs. Yeah.
You almost
All
got
their
cool there for a second.
No.
No.
I had cassette tapes of Motown Philly. And
Oh,
Julian
there you
Harmon.
go. Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, the thing about, like, he was reported to be entering the portal, but then it was like, was it a week and a half before he actually was in the portal after that initial report?
It's about 5 days because he went in yesterday, and we first heard that was coming like Wednesday, Thursday last week. So, I mean, you're talking almost a week for sure.
So it's like, I'm sure OU coaches were like, God damn it, let's talk to this kid. Like, but they're not allowed to until you hit the portal because there are tampering rules in college football with this stuff.
I have heard from more than a few people that there were some very interested parties in that coaching office. Like, is he there yet? Is he there yet? Is he there yet? So it sounds like OU was kind of had their thumb on they were F5ing pretty strongly.
DEFCON 5ing, you mean?
Yeah.
Or F5ing, yeah. That would be.
Yep.
I think it's DEFCON 1. Although that's always a misnomer. I think DEFCON, the highest is like 5, and the lowest is 1. I can't remember how that goes.
No, it's everybody thinks it's 5, but 1 is actually the biggest danger, if I'm not mistaken. Maximum military readiness is DEFCON 1. Yep. I thought that was right. I've played a lot of video games in my time.
Oh boy, this just out football scoop staff.
Oh no.
Gabe DeArmond sent it to me from Missouri. And apparently Mike Stoops in the mix. I haven't pulled up this article yet. That's it, because he's asking me for a quote on Mike Stoops. I gave a quote to our Miami site about Charleston Rambo.
as Missouri's DC?
Yes. Hold on. Okay, it's coming up now. Yeah, screw you and your cookies, all right? I don't need you. God, I need a new iPhone. This 6 is killing me. Because Ryan Walters is joining the Illinois staff because they threw money like sons of it. I mean, Illinois was bound and determined to get a defensive coordinator. I mean, they came in and offered Jim Knowles like $1.2 million or something.
While Kerry looks for that, Dennis Dodd just put out Jeff Banks' contract breakdown. He is going to make over $1 million per year as their assistant head coach and special teams coach. Texas is just paying out the nose. They're just paying out the nose.
Alabama's okay. Here's who Drinkwitz is looking candidates to replace Ryan Walters. Alabama's Charles Kelly, Cleveland Browns assistants Chris Kiffin, in-house candidate David Gibbs, and veteran coach Mike Stoops.
He's gone through the car wash. He's been through the Saban car wash. He's ready to be.
It's the rehab.
He's ready now. He's all.
Butch, Arkansas State.
Would he though become Alabama's defensive coordinator if Pete Golding goes to Texas?
It's possible. How much would that chat? Oh God! Imagine if OU made it to the national championship game, had to play a Mike Stoops defense for the national title. Oh God! Those stories just write themselves. Like that's amazing.
Woo! What would Bob do?
Oh God! Would Bob like break out one of those jerseys like half Alabama, half Oklahoma?
I think as long as Drake was on the team, Bob would be like, "Look, Mike, you've made a lot of money coaching football. All right, it's my son's time."
Yeah, fair. I guess in Bob's case, would it be like a half visor? It wouldn't even be jersey. He'd go visor.
I mean, he just wears his designer dress shirts everywhere, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he's
not
working
big
now.
He's not big on the jersey wearing. I can't imagine Bob Stoops showing up wearing an OU replica jersey somewhere. He'd have to have had a lot of rock and roll tequila for that to happen.
Well, I mean, live a little, Bob. Get after it. It's fine.
Oh, I talked to him yesterday. He was on our show. He's been out living it up with Toby Keith in Mexico.
Oh God, he didn't go to DC yesterday, did he?
No. All right, moving on.
You know, the thing out with Bob Stoops this morning was the fact that if Urban Meyer leaves the big Fox show, would Bob be interested in taking over Urban Meyer's spot?
I think he'd do a really good job. I could not see him I asked him about it. Is he still hearing from people? And he said, yeah, his agent hears from people, and they just kind of gauge his interest a lot. But I don't get the feeling that he wants anything to do with college coaching right now. I mean, I think if the XFL comes back and COVID's not an issue,
is what.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think that would be, something that he would look at. It's just, I think what they're doing. You guys know how those tequila companies work. He's part owner of that. If some big, liquor conglomerate comes in there and buys up, he could be a $100 millionaire. I mean, I think that's something he's enjoying doing and enjoying playing a lot of golf. I think he's kind of settling into retirement a little bit.
Yeah, just the freedom of not being forced to have to be somewhere every Saturday. I think he would want to keep that option open.
And I think as long as Drake's at OU,
sure,
he'd rather just stick around here and watch games on Saturdays, OU games.
Sure.
But you never know. I mean, he's always that guy that says you never know what the future holds. So he could really do anything. He could be back in college coaching. I don't know. By the way, outside of that, Urban Meyer to Jacksonville. Is that done yet? I haven't even paid attention the last couple of hours.
I think it's everything but. I think it's basically been reported by Michael Lombardi that they would expect a press conference or an official announcement at some point this afternoon.
That's interesting. I mean, him as a professional coach, outside of just being, a figurehead, I don't know what he brings to the NFL. I mean, he's not Sean McVay. He's not Lincoln Riley. He's not even Cliff Kingsbury. He's not going to be running the offense. They're certainly not running the Tim Tebow, Alex Smith,
Trevor Lawrence,
JT Barrett offense.
His quarterback. So
yeah,
this would be the most interest that the Jacksonville Jaguars have had in the last 20 years.
Since the days of Tony Baselli.
I bet you worshiped Tony Baselli, didn't you?
Oh, I love Tony Baselli. Tony Baselli, I can remember having conversations when he was at USC, trying to convince my dad he was better than Anthony Munoz, who my dad holds in the highest regard of NFL offensive linemen. So, when I tell people I met Anthony Munoz, that's a big thing to me, and everybody's like, "Who the hell's Anthony Munoz?" So I'm like, God damn it! It's frustrating because I think of him as NFL royalty, and for most people, he's just another NFL offensive lineman.
You got to have your heroes.
Yeah. Like I said, this is a.
I think most people would be surprised that you didn't worship defensive backs in their hips. No, Deion Sanders is your Lord and Savior.
Yeah, I bagged on Deion, and Deion is that's a dude that in his high school tape I would have been like, good Lord, this is unbelievable. But no, he was soft. He didn't want to tackle anybody, so I didn't like Deion Sanders.
What do you guys think? Just as far as Josh, I'm going to start with you. What do you think about draft prospects for all the OU guys going in? I mean, first off, do you think Tre Norwood gets drafted? And secondly, where do you think Ronnie Perkins goes? Where do you think Rhamondre Stevenson goes?
I will say Norwood doesn't get drafted. I just. Man, his frame and his, it's one of those things if you got a frame like that, but you've played 30 games, you're going to get some leniency. He's had injury problems. He's had some, and even, again, some of the stuff is not going to be his fault, but it's easy for a team to write you off if you've missed as many games as they have, or as he has. It's just going to seem like something is amiss. And, I mean, like I said, his tape's good. He's not overly physical as a safety. I don't know. I don't see the fit. Perkins, I think it's going to come down to 40 time. Or not even 40 time. Really, how he works in the agility stuff at the combine. Can he fall off and play as a 3-4 stand-up outside linebacker? Because if he can, he could sneak middle second. That could happen. I don't think it will. I think he's probably a third rounder, almost regardless of what happens. But if he really went out and showed people how his change of direction, I think he'd be okay. Rhamondre, I'd guess fourth round, probably, something like that. he might even
you don't think that a team could fall in love with, because that's what's happened with running backs lately. Teams fall in love with a guy. I think wasn't it the Chiefs that took Clyde Edwards-Helaire a lot higher than people thought, even though a lot of people liked him.
Yeah.
But it's like you get one team that falls in love with you, and like the Chiefs, you tell me Rhamondre wouldn't be a great compliment to Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
Oh, sure. I mean,
there's going to be some team that he's just a perfect compliment for. They're like, if we have that guy, our offense is immediately better. That could take him, I think, at least in the third round.
But you take him that high, that's kind of a luxury. I mean, running backs, like, you can win a Super Bowl without an elite running back anymore. You don't need it. And he's not a guy that's so good he's going to come in and fix your running game. Like, I mean, he's really good, but we're not talking about Adrian Peterson or, Ezekiel Elliott or someone along those lines. It's just really instantly going to supercharge your offense. He's like you said, he's a complimentary guy, at least in his year 1, year 2. I mean, he's got to get his feet under him. He, again, hasn't played a lot of football, or at least at a high level. So there are questions you have. Now, the other side of it is, like I was just saying earlier, there's an advantage that he hasn't played a lot of football. He doesn't have a lot of, wear and tear on him. Like he is a healthy guy that hasn't suffered a lot of injuries and is good to go. Don't get me wrong. I think he can be a really good NFL player, but based on the demand, I just think fourth round is that's where I would have him. Like, because you don't need to go higher than that to find a running back with a similar, background, similar pedigree.
You think Trey Sermon gets drafted?
Yeah. What's the outcome on his injury? I've missed that.
Right. It just had to be a shoulder. I mean, I don't know if it was a broken collarbone or not. Yeah.
Because that might make him come back.
But I mean, he's had a lot of injury problems.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's not Mr. Glass, but
yeah,
he's not. It's not positive either.
And it's so weird because he's never been an overly physical runner. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's had moments of it, but like, if anything, you would think, I want that guy to, as big and powerful as he is, I'd like him to be more physical than he is. And that's just never really been his game.
I mean, that won't really affect OU as much, but I did see that thing today where March 1st is the deadline for seniors to let everyone know if they're coming back or not. There aren't that many.
Oh, you mean for the NCAA?
Yeah. Like I mean, we know Isaiah Thomas already announced, but someone like Trey Sermon would be interesting. Does he want to come back for a fifth year because it's there, or would he want to take a chance at the next level?
I gotta think he went to Ohio State to get noticed, and he did that with his last two games. Before his 2 games before the championship.
Guys, we could run down that list like of OU seniors, like Tanner Schaefer. Do you think OU's now pushing hard for him to come back, just to have a guy that can take snaps?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say absolutely.
I'm kind of with Bob. I'm kind of with Bob. They need a quarterback in case they need to have some type of oh shit if something happens.
I know this offense. I've been in it for 5 years. I'll be in it for 6. That's fine.
We call it the red button is flashing quarterback. Like, oh God, we need something out there.
I mean, are you going to do any better than Tanner Schaefer?
For a reason.
Are you going to do any better than Tanner Schaefer? That's the question. I don't know that you can. I mean, you could.
Not if you want to walk on. If you're hell bent on getting a walk on instead of a scholarship guy, then no.
And Chad Morris is still not the offensive coordinator at TCU yet. I haven't been paying attention to that.
Well, what if Patterson played that perfectly? Morris just on the roster, and he's like, "Oh well, we came up with some things in the background we weren't comfortable with, Chad, but we'll still let Chandler play here." That'd be amazing.
I just think that's such a powder keg. I mean,
sure.
If you're Chandler Morris, how do you ever win a starting job over Max Duggan if your dad's the OC? It's just going to look like favoritism.
Yep. I agree. And guys, with what we're talking about, so like you got Theo Howard, Obi Obialo. Like, what do you do with those guys? I mean, do you obviously LaRon Stokes, Caleb Kelly, Brian Mead is an interesting question.
Eric Bailey. Shout out Eric Bailey. What will Brian Mead do?
I don't think it matters
then,
what Brian Meade will do, because if he stays at Oklahoma, we'll never see him again. I'm sorry.
What? Kerry has turned his back on his guy. Oh, this is brutal.
He was never my guy. I just said that people were shitting on him more than he deserved. But after watching him stand there like a statue in the Big 12 championship game and just or was that Florida that I'm thinking of?
Florida. Where
Just, late in the game. Literally, his feet were planted in the ground like cement posts. I mean, that was bad. I was just like, okay, you guys say whatever you want about Brian Meade. I can't defend that.
You're resigning as a public defender?
Yes. It's no longer pro bono, Brian. You have to pay me.
We really should. We could make quite a racket out of that.
Pay us not to talk shit on you?
Exactly. On the scoop. We'll even defend your ass for the right price. Have like little commercials.
I will delete threads ripping on you for $50 a month.
Put it in the search bar.
We could probably get some parents to take us up on that. I don't know about 50 a month, but at least 10.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's no doubt. There are some parents out there that would jump on board with that option.
We have to stop talking about this. But going back to Josh's point, like Chance Sylvie is another one. Is like, injuries have destroyed what he could have been as a player.
No, he's not alive. He needs to go do the stuff that he wants to do. He's already I think he's already graduated from graduate school. Or he's in graduate school. I know he's graduated undergrad. Like, it's time, Chance. I mean, I think you're going to do great things in life, and I really admire, the stance that he's taken with social justice and how much he's tried to work with. Because, anyway, I don't want to get too much. I just really admired what he did and the, reform instead of all the other stuff that people were talking about. I think, I don't know. I got to think if you're Chance Sylvie, look, I played 4 years here. It just wasn't my thing. Like, I'm just never going to be a starter.
And those injuries killed him. He was never the same kid, just like Jordan Parker, just like so many others. I mean,
Georgia killed him too. That Georgia game was the end of his career in OU fans' eyes.
Yep. And he wasn't even injured.
It wasn't his fault that he was the only player on that side of the field, by the way. I'm not trying to get people triggered about Mike Stoops. I'm really not. But yeah, I mean, look, I think you do have to push Anton Harrison at left guard, and then I think you have to move Eric Swinson to right guard if that's where he's going to play him there, or right tackle, yeah. And then if you get Wanye Morris,
ooh, nice,
then you can flip him to left tackle and put Anton over there at right tackle.
What interesting is that because you knew the 4-game rule didn't exist, but you never saw Nate Anderson. I pulled a Josh because that tweet it still messed me up.
Wow, that's amazing.
Ha Vengeance in case you care, Bob.
Nelson, that's right. No, I don't have a clue how those guys developed throughout the course of this year. No idea.
Sorry, I'm getting deliveries.
We just saw them on the sidelines at the Cotton Bowl, but they never actually suited up for anything to have an idea of what college has been able to do for them in terms of the conditioning or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole offensive line thing was weird, like who would suit up, who wouldn't. I do think it was interesting. Like, Lincoln kind of gave Bray Walker a pass that we never really talked about that, but he gave him pretty much a pass on in kind of calmed any kind of fears that there was any issue with him. I can't remember exactly what it was he said, but
he said behind the scenes he's been doing some good stuff, even though he's been injured. Is kind of how he.
And we all kind of thought he might have one foot out the door, which I don't think he does now.
Correct.
So yeah, I mean, I all those guys. I mean, Daryl Simpson is still there, right? I mean, like, he's just disappeared.
I would love to ask Bill what it was like.
God, I'd love to talk to Bill.
Manage
Yeah.
Simpson after the death of his father in July.
Yeah, you
in
brought
the
that up
era of
before that you
COVID.
think that might be something that's really
Because
just
he's still, I'm not the wrong
screwed him
thing.
up, but,
He's
you know,
still-
really
he's still tweeting it. He's still posting things about that. Months later, it's still obviously very heavy on his heart and one of the first things he thinks of. And he's not a big social media guy, but most of his recent messages have been about his dad. And I just can't imagine what these last 6 months have been like for him when you're in COVID protocol and you can't go home when you need to be with your family during this type of time.
I think Bob Przybilla, if there was a national award for Twitter reporting, I think Bob could win it.
I'm not sure how to take that.
I'd just say he's really good at deciphering things from Twitter. I mean, like, I'll say this. I started the who's following who's. Bob took it and ran it with to a whole different level.
I started with Trevor Knight with A&M in 2015.
Okay.
That was the first time I saw that it actually worked. Like, you need...
See, you should stop. We should not even talk about this because you're just giving the amateur Twitter reporters the playbook here.
But they need to know not to do it on mobile. So many people make that mistake.
Desktop
mobile
is the way.
doesn't help you.
Yeah, you're right. But again, you're giving away secrets. You're making yourself irrelevant.
Bob, can we edit that to where Bob said, do it on mobile?
Do it on mobile.
That'll work the best.
I don't know if we can edit that, but I'm definitely clipping that and just getting Bob saying, do it on mobile. In his
Problem
weird voice.
solved.
Out of context. Dang it.
Anything else that you want to hit on as far as transfer portal, NFL draft stuff? I think maybe we got some other things we can hit on outside of that.
No, I think we've covered it.
Wow. All right, it is time for us to tell you about our great sponsor, the Unofficial 40 Podcast. That is Dead Soxy, deadsoxy.com. And I am in love with the no-show socks. I am wearing them. Like, I just look for a reason to leave the house now so I can put on my no-shows and my tennis shoes and go out there because they feel like I am walking on a cloud. And Eddie, I know you love the no-shows as well as just the boardroom socks as well. Just great feeling fabric, and they don't fall down around your ankles, and really just make it easy to slip your shoes on.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's the patented no-slip silicone beads that I've actually had to wear the longer socks over the last couple of days. I had to put a suit on even, and they worked perfectly. The socks never went down my leg. I know that's a kind of a problem for a lot of people, but yeah, I mean, it's Dead Soxy, so you know it's going to be a good product.
You had to do that for a photo shoot, didn't you? Because you're an influencer.
Something like that, yes.
Deadsoxy.com, DEADSOXY.com. It's not sexy like I spelled it that one time. Head on over there. Use your promo code BOOMER for 30% off the best dress socks that you've ever put on. And as always, we'll remind you guys to stay soxy. What do you guys think about, let's talk about this real quick. Everybody's come out with their way too early lists. Where do you think the top four really are going into next year? Eddie, let's start with you. You've been kind of quiet.
Alabama 1, Alabama 2, Alabama 3, Alabama 4, and then everybody else.
I'll be interested to see what Bryce Young looks like as a starter. I mean, he's really good. I like him.
And we'll see who the Saban has to re-go and structure his staff with. But, you know, I think what we've seen through the way too early preseasons is probably what you're going to expect. It's going to be Alabama, Clemson, and OU's going to probably be in there somewhere in between 3 and 5 in just about every poll. You might have some people that have them a little bit higher, but I mean, OU enters the 2021 season, and we're going to say this 1,000 times, maybe more, in between now and August or September, and they're going to have the expectation next year is for OU to play for a national championship. It's nothing less.
I would say that this is the most preseason hype that OU will have as a potential national champion, maybe since 2011.
I think that's right.
I mean, they were the odds-on favorite going into 2011. Just didn't work out.
2014 Yeah, they weren't the favorite. They were like 3 or 4.
Yeah, coming off that Alabama win.
The Sugar Bowl.
Yeah. And then that went to shit. My God.
I have a little bit more faith in Spencer Rattler than I do in Landry Jones. Sorry, Landry.
You're not sorry.
No, you're not sorry, and I'm not sorry either. It's very awkward being around him at Gabe's wedding with all the shit I've said about him.
You bastard.
It's a good thing there were club specials everywhere.
Oh.
Who's the Buckeyes quarterback?
It seems like it's somebody obvious that we're just not thinking of.
Yep. I'm sure it is. I can't think of him at all.
Let's see here. Jack Miller, big recruit. He was a big kid out of Arizona last year for them. He was, I think he was close to breaking some of Rattler's records, but didn't, or something like that. But he's a kid out of Chaparral and Scottsdale.
Rich kid.
Yeah. Yeah, not a lot of poor folk in Scottsdale.
No.
Like it's kind of like the slums of Beverly Hills kind of thing. So
no, but I do think, I think there are going to be questions about Clemson, even though they have a quarterback with a bigger win than just about anybody coming back next year. I know they've still been recruiting well. I just wonder if they have the defensive line that they've had. They lost a lot of backups too. They got killed in the portal with depth at defensive line.
Yeah, guys, we can talk about what Oklahoma brings back, and there's a lot of good there. Obviously, you start with Spencer Rattler, and then you kind of go from there. But when you look at the teams that do well from year to year, they return a quarterback, they return offensive and defensive lines, in which Oklahoma returns a ton in all three categories. But the thing for me also is what everybody else loses. Like it just feels like a real sweet spot for it, because it feels like there's been years in the past when Oklahoma was really good, but somebody else, you're like, they're just better. They're just better this year. There's nobody that screams at me and says, oh, you can't climb that mountain. Like they just can't. There's no way. Now maybe next year we'll get there and Bryce Young is Tua all over again, and there's a Joe Burrow emergent somewhere, whatever. But right now, looking at it, it seems like it's there.
I think the biggest thing, though, is, and nationally, I think this is why Oklahoma is viewed so well, they have a defense that actually performs now. It's not a one-time thing. Like this season, Florida, it wasn't, everybody knew they were down, but that performance and 3 interceptions in the first quarter, that's all they had to do to erase LSU from a year ago. Like, they did everything they needed to do this year to erase that terrible ending last year. And that defense wasn't bad last year. They lost 2 key people and really 1 key people in Delarian Turner and Ronnie Perkins. They weren't rushing the passer that day anyway. That offensive line was massive. But it was just a disaster, and it wasn't them. It was not indicative of the year they had, but everybody, it was because it was in the playoff. People don't pay attention. Like, same Oklahoma defense. It was never the same Oklahoma defense. It was just a terrible shit show of a game, and this year they were even better, and we've talked about the young talent left and right. Like, this team can go out there and go toe-to-toe with an Alabama, with an Ohio State. I think they could have done that this year. I don't believe that OU deserved to be in that game, but I would love to have seen exactly what they would have done to Alabama. They wouldn't have won the game, I don't think. They wouldn't have won the game. I'm not even going to qualify. They would not have won the game. They would not have won the game. I just really would like to know what the final score would have been, what the measuring stick was there, like how much closer they were. I don't think Alabama would have put up 70 on them. I don't.
No. I don't think Oklahoma's defense is any worse than Ohio State's. Probably better, arguably.
Well, people forgot about this. Ohio State's secondary was bad all year. Indiana killed them. Yep. Was it Michigan State? No, Michigan State, they killed them. But their secondary had problems all year long. And then they faced Devontae Smith, and he just ripped them a new one.
which, he's likely to do. Trying to think. Here we go. Trying to find the final rankings. I'd be interested to see. Yeah, I mean, Ohio State was ranked ahead of Oklahoma in SP+, but not crazy. I mean, 7-15. I mean, that's wild that Oklahoma's closed the gap that fast. Florida ended up 33rd in defense, but that, like I said, just I think in a lot of the ways that Ohio State couldn't, and Ohio State was obviously hurt by losing the 2 defensive linemen. That was a big hit. The Togalai guy is a big part of their run defense, and the fact that they didn't have him, like that first 4th and 1 where Alabama goes for the goal line, maybe it goes differently if they've got their main guy there that is one of their key run stoppers. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen differently, but at the same time, I mean, I think Oklahoma could have been interesting. I think you would have seen the young tight end from Alabama, whose name's going to escape me right now, that's really, really talented. Yes.
Yeah,
he
would, 19.
He would have gone to work on those safeties. Like, that would have been like Alabama would have been like, that's what we got. We're going to do this all night. Now, and Devontae Smith against a couple of young corners that are very talented, but that would have been a lot to ask from those guys.
Do you think Najee Harris is will be the second best running back that Alabama's produced in the modern era?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love Harris.
He's really
and I
good.
think he may have better longevity than Henry. I mean, Henry's so freakishly talented, but Henry's not a great receiver. He's not. I mean, like, he is.
And by the way,
like the final gasp of the downhill runner.
I count Kamara as Tennessee, so not Alabama.
For sure.
Anybody
Absolutely.
that wants to go, Kamara.
Well, I mean, you got to make sure who that would have been at that point at Tennessee. Was that Butch?
Butch Jones, yeah.
Oh yeah, you got to make sure Butch gets his credit. That's a living legend there. But yeah, so no, I like Najee a lot. I remember watching him at high school, and it's funny how this year's come together because I remember sitting there with a guy from Ohio State side at the Army All-American game the year Najee was a senior and watching him and Jalen Phillips, and you were just like, they're different. All these other guys are good, but every year I'm there's 2 or 3 guys that you're like, yeah, they're not like everybody else. And it was Najee and Jalen Phillips. Well, coming into this year, I was like, man, I guess I whiffed on that because those dudes weren't doing much. And then Najee blows up, has a huge year, and Jalen Phillips looks like he may sneak into the first round after a really good year at Miami.
By the way, I mentioned this earlier. Go ahead, Eddie.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Jalen Phillips had a monster year. I did not realize he had such a good year until I think it was the AP All-America team came out. I was like, God damn! I did not realize that he had such a good year. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I mentioned this earlier, but our Miami site called and said, "Hey, what can you tell us about Rambo?" And of course, they're really curious about why someone left and. Because from the outside, it's kind of like with everything else. We know everything there is, but people on the outside, they're like, wasn't he Oklahoma's best receiver? And I was like, well, he was the guy heading into the season, and I was pretty brutally honest about it. I just said, look, he's not a first-round type talent. He's a guy that can, get down the field and get behind a defense, but he has no wiggle to him, and he's not a yards after the catch guy. And I said, and he also had trouble catching the ball. And as I'm saying this, the guy's like, you could hear his heart breaking as I'm giving him my scouting report on Charleston Rambo. And then I think at the end, I just had to kind of be like, he was like, but you think he's good, right? And I was like, oh yeah, he's good. He's a good receiver. Like, I was just kind of placating him. Like, but I just don't. I mean, I watched Miami play several times this year. They have they have a ton of fast guys at receiver that cannot catch the ball.
Who's throwing him the football next year with King's injury?
It's the kid that came in late and actually played pretty well.
Yeah.
Oh, did he? Oh, I missed that. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I missed that.
I think this opens the door for a Tate Martell return.
Oh, gee.
As a quarterback
Jesus.
this time.
I mean, his sister could help him recruit some receivers there.
Didn't he leave? Where is he now? Is he still at Miami?
He opted out.
Yeah, he opted out of the season. I think he's still at Miami, but he opted out.
Right.
Wow. Whew. Yeah, I mean, I think that was the best move for Rambo. I think just a change of scenery was probably needed after this year. I just don't know if OU was like, you want to leave? Because you can. If you want.
It's just weird because it's not. You wouldn't get that sense from the coaches. You would get it from the way he dealt with his connect or lack of connection with Spencer Rattler. But the coach, I mean, all the targets, all the playing time, all the snaps, nothing to indicate they were frustrated with him. But you could more sense that he was mad that something just didn't click throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, let's just face it. Marvin Mims, better receiver. I think Jaden Hazelwood will be a better receiver. Theo Weiss is a better receiver. He was more productive. Austin Stogner, a better receiver, even though he's a tight end. Like, there's just so many options on that team that are better than Charleston Rambo. And better options than 3 years ago when it was just him and CD.
It's not like they didn't give him opportunity.
No, you're right.
He had plenty of opportunities to prove that he was the guy.
And maybe, Lincoln sat him down and said that to him. Maybe he said, look, we gave you every opportunity to be our guy, for this to be your year, and it didn't happen. So we've got to move on to other guys.
I never got the feeling that they were just completely heartbroken. And they being OU.
No.
About his exit.
That was my impression, that it was, it wasn't that OU shoved him out the door or anything.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of
it might be best for everybody.
Yeah, like if you feel like you've got to be the guy, your chance, you've had that chance and it hasn't been taken. So at some point, if that's what you feel like you need to do, then it's probably not here.
Yeah. I'll it's just like with everybody else. I hope John Michael Terry does well at Tulsa. I hope he does well at Miami. I hope, everybody that transfer out does well. I mean, I'm kind of like the players now. Like everybody's patting each other on the back, go get the bag and all that. Yeah, I'm right there with them.
Only person left is Barnes. All the other scholarship players have made their choices.
Barnes is the best example of, if you have a bunch of stars next to your name coming out of high school, even if you weren't productive, people still want you really bad. Like it's always that, we can change him attitude, I think.
The boards had the same theory with some of the people that have popped up in the portal. And again, you have to look at what they did in college too. Not just that they were like a top 150 kid for the 2016 class way back in the day.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, Bob. It's like all of these kids, you look at like how many, because we get it through the, most of them I see through the Rivals portal Twitter thing. And it's like, okay, so this kid was a 4-star. Let's go check out and see what he did. And it's like, had 10 receptions for 95 yards and a touchdown. It's like, well, I can see that. I've been kind of surprised that the portal hasn't been filled with guys that are just almost looking a free agent year. Like there really hasn't been a ton of guys that have a lot of experience just looking to go elsewhere. It's been guys trying to get onto the field, which I guess makes sense, but I don't know. Maybe a month ago, I kind of thought it was going to just be, big names moving around.
And I think for the most part, I've been kind of pleasantly surprised at how honest kids are with themselves. Like, you haven't seen a lot of kids go that didn't like Charleston Rambo might be the most high profile what's the word I'm looking for, lateral move, like from Oklahoma to Miami. You haven't seen a lot of that. Like people aren't like I'm trying to think. There have been some big school guys that have gone to smaller schools, but you haven't really seen a lot of smaller school guys go to bigger schools.
It'll be interesting to see where like a KD Nixon ends up. He had a really good career at Colorado.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. All right, before we get out of here, let's talk about a little hoops action. Sooners' last big win against TCU. Bedlam coming up this weekend. The Big 12, guys, it is just insane. It's ridiculous.
At least the top part is incredible. The top part is like 7, 8 deep though, but it is incredible.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, that was a hell of a basketball game last night in Austin with Matt McClung making the jumper with 2 seconds left. And, I think that you can make an argument that outside of Iowa State and Kansas State, every game in the Big 12 is at least keep an eye on it type of entertaining.
Which is why Tuesday was so shocking.
Sure.
In my eyes. A 36-point win for the Sooners. I did not see that coming. I thought they'd win, even without Brady Manick, Jalen Hill for the second straight game. But the fact that they did it so emphatically is like, wow, okay, that now you've got to sweep it against the Frogs. I mean, you can, because the Sooners haven't gone through any of Iowa State and Kansas State yet. They've got some wins that they can definitely pick up heading toward the second half of this conference season.
Well, and it's like you said, Bob, they've been doing all of it without Brady Manick, too. And, I think that after the performance in Lawrence and then after Tuesday's game against TCU, there could be an argument made that the 4-guard lineup with Kerr has looked really, really good.
For sure. I mean, the way they locked down on defense has just been a big difference, and it's a noticeable difference in the last 2 games. You have 16 turnovers, convert them into 25 points, makes life a lot easier. Now, if Harkless can start making shots like he did in the second half and add that dimension to him, then you're talking about in the way that Kurt Quett is stretching the court a little bit by making the occasional 3. The offense all of a sudden looks a heck of a lot better compared to what it did, 2-3 weeks ago.
Well, and Bob, I mean, I think everybody's talking about how many teams will be in the NCAA tournament from the Big 12. But if you're Oklahoma, West Virginia's your best win so far. You had a close loss to Tech. The Baylor loss was not as bad as I thought it might be. At least they played pretty well through most of that game, or stayed in it most of that game. The Kansas loss was, close. I mean, the Oklahoma State win would be big. But you're going to need a Tech or a Kansas win at some point, aren't you? Just kind of feel good about your NCAA tournament hopes?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to defend home court against either Texas or Kansas, or Baylor.
Texas
You've
win.
got chances. You're going to get chances. You just have to. You don't have to win them all, but you have to win 2 or 3 of them to really cement yourself, and then take care of business against Iowa State and Kansas State. Go at least 3-1 in those 4 games. Don't go 2-2, or definitely don't go like 1-3. But you find a way to clean up against the bottom half, and then just do enough against the top half.
Is it? I mean, Queth has started playing better. I think I said his name right for the first time, right off the top. And is it kind of like Walkor's had his moments, but it seems like he's kind of fallen back a little bit?
A little bit, yeah. I thought he'd explode onto the scene more coming off the way he played at the end of non-conference season. But Kurt Queth has done a tremendous job. And when he can play like he did Tuesday, 9 points, 7 boards, a couple blocks, that's what you need. And if he can do that consistently, this team will be in really good shape. But what you get scared about is when he does the disappearing act and only has 4 points, 2 rebounds. And he's got to be better than what he's ever been before on a consistent basis. And I think that's been his struggle and his challenge throughout the course of the season.
The guy that's really surprised me has been Elijah Harkless.
Yes.
I didn't really know what to expect. Kid coming in from Cal Northridge. He's exceeded my expectations, and I know it's only been kind of a short sample.
A month for him so far, yeah.
But, I mean, he's been not night and day better, but he's been a contributor, and I don't know if I would have been able to say that a month ago.
And that's actually what I'm gonna ask Lon about that here in 15 minutes. The journey for this kid. A month ago, he's not even eligible to play. They have to wait for that free transfer rule to be put in place. And now he's starting back-to-back games as a player who came in fully understanding he's supposed to redshirt this season. They weren't fighting to get him eligible for this year. They knew he would be the sit-out guy and then have him for next year. Just the way that he has responded to everything that's been thrown at him during the last 2-3 months is very impressive.
I think you have to go back to kind of the West Virginia game when Manick, and I know he's been out with COVID stuff, but when he had a really big impact on the game. I mean, to me, that is one of the biggest concerns moving forward, is that you're just not getting enough out of him.
Yeah, when the physicality ramps up, sometimes, let's say disappears, but he doesn't play at the level that you can see him play at against some other teams. And there's a real question, like, if his offense isn't working, can he still fight to earn minutes and deserve those minutes on the court? Which that West Virginia game you bring up, that was the double offensive rebound that he did that showed that even though he only had 7 points in that game, those back-to-back boards that led to the Austin Reeves 3 was like probably the biggest play of the game.
Are basketball Zoom calls your favorite Zoom calls so far?
You know what's funny is the preview ones, like the ones we're about to do, are incredible. There's only like 3 or 4 of us. It's the guys you would expect to ask questions. They're tremendous. It's the post games that when, Eddie, you've been to enough of those. When we do those with all 3 of them together, they last like 7 or 8 minutes total?
Probably.
Now they last like 25 to 30, and there's just no reason for it. Because they go one by one, and everyone feels like they have to get their question is the most important one, and it's like 8-9 minutes per coach per player, and it's like, geez, this is almost longer than what the second half against the Frogs was.
They're not fun.
But today's will be fun, usually. Unless now it's Bedlam and more people show up that normally don't care about this stuff.
All right. Josh, anything just recruiting-wise you wanted to hit on before we get out of here?
No,
recruiting?
nothing crazy with recruiting. Like I said, we'll have some stuff and some scoop. There is a little bit of movement in 2021. Like maybe something happens. I don't think so, but there are some interesting storylines kind of popping up here in the last few days. I did want to say, guys, maybe the most famous vehicle in the history of the unofficial 40 is no longer with us. The F950 has been decommissioned. So I just wanted to, offer it a sweet goodbye. It's been a good ride, but it's I got a new one right before New Year's, and finally after a long problem with getting the truck sold, finally got it sold last week. So it's gone.
James Harden buy it before he went to Brooklyn?
No. He said it was a little large for him. He wasn't sure if he could get in properly.
He's gained all that weight.
Yeah, smaller guy. It's a problem for him. So, me of such height, it didn't affect me in the same way. But yeah, no. He did complain about the noise though. That was a problem before he left for Brooklyn. So.
Have you replaced it? Like, just tell me, like, are we doing like sedan, or are we doing what's replaced it?
No, it's another truck. I actually went from the Ford to a Dodge this time. Not nearly as big.
That's a Ram. Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't get used to that it's a Ram. Like, I literally own one now, and it's a Dodge to me. Like, I don't know what, like, a Ram is the type of truck. It doesn't make any sense, but whatever. No, it's a little nicer. Like
they're very nice. They got the huge TV screen thing.
Yeah,
looks like you got an iPad on your
dash.
It's insane.
It's insane. Yeah, so it's nicer. It doesn't have all the off-road stuff. It doesn't sit as high, anything like that. Everybody can get into it pretty I mean, my 3-year-old can get into it. So, that's a good start.
Well, guess what? You just lost us our Eskridge sponsorship by not buying with them. So thanks.
Well, I mean, when they have a truck, I'm all ears. So I am a truck driver.
Eskridge truck. Or the Lexus truck.
The Lexus truck, that would be so badass.
I mean, it'd be nice. I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know what that would look at. Anyway. All right. Thanks to deadsoxy.com. Make sure you go over to deadsoxy.com and use that code. God, what is our code? Scoop? That's so bad.
Hell of a read.
We've had like Holiday Pro, and then we had the Bedlam game, and don't worry, because I'm going back to do an ad read, and I'll tell you then. So if you didn't hear it then, if you fast forward, now go back to like 30 minutes into the podcast, and I'll have what the promo code is. I believe it's promo code is Scoop. I want to say
It's Boomer.
It's Boomer.
Capital B.
I love that Eddie just let you drown for a while there.
Yeah,
I think
thanks,
it's
Eddie.
Boomer.
Thanks, partner.
I was talking and realized that I was muting myself, so I had to fix that.
Promo code Boomer for 30% off. Is it 30, right, Eddie? Is it 25? Yes. Okay.
Unmute yourself.
Yeah. Anyway, wow. What a
strong close.
They're not going to pay that last invoice at Dead Soxy now. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back again next week. Bob, go do your Zoom stuff with Lon Kruger, and we'll see you guys next week right back here on the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com.